Fuck, I was gonna think of something, but then all I could think of was blah blah blah. Welcome to the Space Turtle Show, the greatest show in the galaxy. I'm your co-host Joey Garvey, and with me, as always, is the illustrious Mr. Joshua Toe. Yay!
But that didn't even sound like you. I was like, wait, what?
Yes, quick
But thank
sound bite.
thank you for the beautiful greeting as always.
Mhm.
We'll see how long that lasts, how long you can maintain this
One day you'll just,
energy.
yeah, no, we'll see, we'll see.
Yeah, one day we're gonna do it and you're just gonna roast me in the beginning. But it's all right.
Yeah,
It's all right.
I'm just setting you up. In like 3 years from now, I'll be like, this motherfucker. No.
Okay, well, so this week was Joey's pick, so you wanna give them a little something
Yes,
on that?
I would love to. The pick for this week is Taika Waititi's What We Do in the Shadows, the vampire mockumentary that looks at the real life um, area of vampires and how they live together. And it's a pretty good comedy that I thought would be in good taste because Jojo Rabbit, Taika Waititi's newest film that's got a lot of Oscar buzz, is coming out this weekend. So yeah, I picked this movie because I thought it's spooky season and we did such a serious movie last time. It was a good serious movie, but I thought maybe we could just lighten the load a little bit, do a little comedy, and I thought who better than Taika to take us on the journey. So
Mhm. Yeah. Joey's still coming down from the orgasm from the last movie, so, he
yeah,
got he got a little
yeah,
lighthearted one this time.
yeah. I couldn't handle it last time. We had to go down a little.
Existential crisis balanced out by comedy. I love it,
Yeah,
I love
it's
it.
okay. I already had my existential crisis this morning, so we're
But
out for that one.
but it was tasteful comedy too, I liked it a
Oh,
lot.
yeah, it's really smart comedy.
Mhm.
It's got like that nice New Zealand dry humor, which I only knew about by watching Taika Waititi movies, and then I had to like, go back and look at clips and stuff, but I really like it. How was your first viewing of it?
I honestly have, like, a crude humor to me, and I just I liked both the dry humor and the crude humor in it, and I think it balanced a lot of both. Yeah, I don't know, it was like, a comedy, movie, but it wasn't just centered around, like, joke after joke after joke. It was kind of it would give itself time to, like, build up to a joke, um, and just the idea of following vampires around who are, like, hundreds of years old in modern society, it was so funny, and so genius to watch.
Yeah, I love that because this is around the time when the mockumentary genre was just picking up, like The
Mhm.
Office was like still on TV and was like halfway done, and they're like, we should do that, but with vampires. And if that's not a Taika Waititi thing to do, I don't know what is because
I heard they, like, were doing the vampire thing as well, but it took the movie, like or it took the crew, like, 9 years to release the movie. Uh,
wow.
yeah, and
Holy
so
shit.
and so as they were, like, editing it and cutting it down and stuff like that, vampires and werewolves and stuff like that started to have it started to go into mainstream, and I just like to read the trivia facts, of the movies while or after I watch it, and so, yeah, the directors, were kinda scared that that kind of, mainstream nature of vampires would affect this movie as it came out, but, it still did well, so
Yeah, I think if anything, it kind of gave it a better reaction just because it was such in the pop culture consciousness, and then they had the satire just ready to go
Mhm.
of vampires. So it was
Mhm.
a really I thought it was really good timing. I didn't know fucking 9 years. That's got to be a long time.
Well, so, what made you watch it for the first time?
I watched it for the first time because this was 2017, and I had just heard that this guy named Taika Waititi was going to be directing Thor Ragnarok. And being the massive comic geek that I am, I was like, "All right, well, if this guy's coming to play in my field, I gotta know his filmography."
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, no, every time a director is announced for a comic book movie, I immediately watch all their films.
Oh my goodness. What if the film turns out bad? Like, the or the comic book film, not like their other filmography.
Well, I mean, this one was a particular case just because, um, I had already heard great things about What We Do in the Shadows and Hunt for the Wilder People.
Mhm.
So I already knew, like, generally, like, what I was gonna be watching was gonna be good, you
Okay,
know?
yeah. Yeah, that makes
Um, it wasn't like, the Thor 2 director, I think
sense.
Alan Taylor Johnson, where he just did some Game of Thrones episodes. It's like, "Alright." But,
Alright, makes sense.
but yeah, I was already interested in his filmmaking, so I went back and saw Hunt for the Wilder People before I saw this movie, and I was just so floored with it. I was so floored that immediately after that, I just put on What We Do in the Shadows because as much as everyone loves Hunt for the Wilder People, What We Do in the Shadows was at the time his kind of, you know, darling picture.
Mhm.
Um, and I really got a kick out of it. So it was it was nice. It was a lovely evening.
That's, like, my favorite thing about Taika Waititi, though. It's like his flair as a director is so, like, prominent, um, and I just love, like, whatever he does, it doesn't even have to. It's not that the stories are necessarily, like, subpar or anything like that, but I feel like it would be able to be a little subpar because he just adds so much energy, and drive to whatever he's doing, you know?
Yeah, I think what kind of separates him is he's an original personality, but he's also so clever that you just never really know where he's going next, whether it be the conventional route or the unconventional route.
Mhm,
And even if it is conventional, he still somehow seems to make it funny.
mhm. I really wanna, like, have a conversation with him and just sit down and be like, "How do you act in a movie you're directing in?" And just, pick his brain about everything about films, He's
Oh
almost one of
yeah.
yeah, almost one of the filmmakers that I'd most like to have a conversation, and he just seems like such a fun person to be around.
Yeah, the funny thing is I've seen a bunch of interviews with him, and every time someone tries to ask him a serious question, he'll just goof off and make them laugh. So I don't really know a lot about the inner workings of Taika Waititi because he's just so damn funny and he just likes to goof off so much. And from what I've heard, his sets are just goofing off most of the time and having fun with the actors. And it seems to work pretty well for him.
Mhm,
So it's a nice counterintuitive way to approach film from like a really like goofy perspective.
mhm. Versus, like, other directors who, like, barely talk, creating this atmosphere of work and of, like,
Uh-huh.
creativity, versus, like, a fun, laid back type of environment. Another piece of trivia that I have is that they recorded 120 hours of film for the movie,
Oh my
and
god.
they had to cut that down to 90 minutes or, like, 85 minutes or something like that, by the
That's
way.
so funny. Holy shit. 120 hours?
Yeah,
I
of
can understand
improv.
I can understand like maybe 6 or 7, but 120, that's so much goddamn film.
Yeah, and the
But
impressive thing is it's improv. I was
yeah,
like
they're just goofing off the whole time. These vampires, it's so funny.
imagine being so creative and so funny. I'm like the most least funny person ever, and I'm just like, "Oh, if only I was if
Yeah,
only I
no.
was able to, like, tell such good jokes and stuff like that."
He's
Mhm.
really he's really witty. I have a feeling his, behind the scenes sets kind of remind me of, I'm about to plug my short film Ping Pong Police.
Yes, go check that
Eh,
out, it's so funny.
check out Ping Pong Police, winner of Best, Comedy Austin Youth Film Festival. Check it out. But yeah, it just feels like a bunch of, like, teenagers fucking around, and then he made a movie, and it happened to be really good.
But, I know you had a hard time thinking of your 2 favorite, aspects of this film, but did you get a chance to make a decision?
Yes.
Ooh.
I've got one of them at least, and then hopefully I'll think of the other one while I'm talking about the first one.
That's how it be sometimes, just
Wha
roll.
I'm gonna do it the way Taika Waititi would do it. So, I think the first one I would say is the dialogue, the improv dialogue. I think, the script in general, I don't know, it's hard to say, like, the script just because the whole thing was improv, you know?
Yeah.
And you can kinda feel that because the story, like, meanders, and it's kinda supposed to meander, you know?
Mhm.
Uh, but the dialogue inside it, like, the kind of clever lines that the vampires will come up with, sometimes something's clever, but sometimes it's cleverly not clever at all, and it's just stupid. And that's some of my favorite comedy anyway. But yeah, whether it be like when, Stu looks up on the internet and he's like, "Hey, you guys wanna look up virgins?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah."
Yeah, I love that joke. And the camera's,
It's
like, slightly out of the door. They're
yeah,
kinda,
it's
like,
so
peering in.
funny. When they set up, like, they can't go to any of the bars because they have to be invited in, and then, Nick is just like, "Oh, I know a guy," and they're like, "What? You do?"
Yeah, that whole, like, cluelessness was just played so well. Like, it wasn't too annoying for them to be, learning, about technology and about, like, getting into those bars and stuff like that. And it's actually kind of endearing to watch, even though they're vampires.
Yeah. Yeah, they were cute, they you kind of had a love for all of them. Each one had a very distinct personality, which was cool,
Mhm.
and it was nice to see 'em, like, riff off each other as vampires, and I think Taika was really well cast. I mean, he cast himself. I mean, I think he picked a good character to play,
True.
um, just like this assorted neat freak vampire,
Mhm,
high class.
mhm.
I just found
Yeah,
that hilarious.
I
He
love
kinda
that.
nailed the part.
Uh-huh. I love that scene where he's yelling at them to put, like, towels and newspapers down, and then later he brings, like, a woman over, and he's just, like, talking to her, and he's just, like,
That was
laying
so funny.
newspapers down and putting out towels, and then
I
it
love
ends up
that.
spraying everywhere still, and then he comes out, and he just, like that Taika Waititi, like, half smile face, like and he's just covered in blood, he's like, that didn't work out."
Yeah.
Oh my
Oh my
gosh.
god. It's so funny.
Did you forget to figure out the second one? Second favorite thing?
Yes, of course, I'm not about to come up with it on the spot.
You
Um,
weren't stalling this entire time.
yeah, I would love to give my second one, but in the order to create suspense, I think you should give your first one.
I don't think my first one's gonna help you out much, but,
No, it's
I
fine, you're giving me time.
okay. Well, my first one is the acting. Okay, well, I don't know. This time it's kind of like I don't really know which one like if number 1 is like over number 2. It's kind of like the same. But that's just the first one I thought of was acting.
Uh-huh.
Like you said, I loved Taika Waititi and his role and his character. I thought that was like the best fit one, but also everyone else like Jermaine Clement, as
Oh, yeah.
Vladislav. Yeah, and
He's hilarious.
and Nick and, Johnny as Deacon and Peter, like,
Oh, Peter was the greatest.
I think they're just the best, like, almost caricatures, but they obviously played it super well because some things are played up and everything for the mockumentary, but to be able to be on camera and be your character for 120 hours of film, and to another fact is that Taika and Jermaine Clement they wrote the script of about like 150 pages, but they didn't show anybody of the crew or the actors or anything, so they had like an outline of a little bit about where to go and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But I'm assuming that they would be the only people that initiated the scene with their knowledge of the script, and then everyone just had to follow them. And I was just like, imagine doing that as an actor, like memorizing lines and getting into character, like especially since I've taken acting classes. It's extremely difficult, and I don't even do it like well, so I can't even imagine how it is for other people. But just kind of putting myself in the shoe of an actor who's just sitting there, okay, be in character, not laugh at jokes, because I already find that entirely like another league is just not laughing at things.
Yeah.
And then having stuff come up like spontaneously and then having to react as your character spontaneously, which just so impressive. Especially like I think this is a little bit of that lack of knowledge is kind of a plus almost, instead of something that people had to adapt to. But for Stu, he wasn't an actor. He was like an actual data analyst person that they hired to come on set to do like data things. That's what they told him, and be in like a couple scenes, and then they just made him be in like every single scene pretty much, like the second
That's
half of the
so
movie.
funny. Yeah, I think that brings to mind like the difference between like a comedic acting performance and a dramatic acting performance.
Oh
Because I
yeah.
feel like in a drama, your your first job is to inhabit the character and be the character and do everything the character would do. But as a comedic actor, well, in this movie, their first job was being in character, but
Mhm.
it's very, very important to get a laugh as well. So you
Mhm.
have to say something funny, but you have to say it in the way that your character would, and most of the time you have to improvise it on the spot,
Yeah.
which I think is like very underrated for an actor to be able to do.
Mhm.
Um, just because a lot of people don't give comedic actors a lot of credit when they do comedic performances, but I don't think a lot of dramatic actors could really do comedy the way that, like, Waititi could or Jermaine Clement?
I think that that serves as another job the actor has to be, is like a writer as well. And I love actors who are like help participate in writing and developing their characters and stuff like that. So you have to act well, react, and also you're writing like this pretty much the script as you go as well. And I think that's like another job that the actors don't necessarily have to do generally, but that skill employed in this comedic movie was just totally underrated. But yeah, I feel that the comedy actors not getting as much recognition um, is kind of sad, but it also depends, like, if it's, like, acting, a comedic actor that has, like, one type of, personality, and then they, like, do that over and over in different films, then I'm like, "Okay," but, like, in this one, I feel like, it takes a lot more skill, but also I haven't seen too much acting from anyone other than Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi after this movie, so, maybe they're just playing themselves, who knows, you know?
Yeah. You got me really into the acting thing.
'Cause it's really good. I got
It
me really into the acting thing,
it
so
is good. You know what? You might have convinced me to go with
to go with acting?
with that. No, no, no. I think you should give your second.
Okay, well, my second one is actually special effects, with
Oh.
a little shout out to the, production design as well. When I watched this, of course, mockumentaries always make you think, like, smaller budget, which is almost generally true. So I found myself really inspired by the special effects and the production design, because I looked up the budget, and of course, it's never like anything that I'd ever make in my lifetime.
Yeah,
It's still
yeah.
a lot of money if you think about it in terms of money. But if you think about it in terms of like compared to other movies, it had a budget of about $1.6 million,
Oh my
which
god.
is like,
That is nothing.
yeah, that's, like, so little compared to how much, other movies, get. Even The Joker, who's, like, a small budget movie, is, like, 70, $80,000 for the I mean, 70 or
Yeah.
$80 million.
I was like, "Oh my god, what? Joker?" Scared
So
me.
So it gave me a lot of inspiration because whenever I'm like writing or thinking about like what to do to make like shorts and to make and to later make films, I'm always like, oh, try not to do anything big because I don't know how much money you're going to be able to work with. Like special effects is going to be very difficult to do with a smaller budget and everything like that. But like I said, like
Mhm.
1.6 million is still more money than I'll probably ever make in my lifetime. But in terms of movies, it's so little, and they were able to do like so much flying around. Like the production design was just like they
All
filled an entire house, like
the
and then
blood.
makeup, all the blood, all the furniture they had to get, like, it looked so immersive, and the flying was so funny, and I was just so surprised that they're able to create something that's so, I don't know, like I said, immersive, you know?
Mhm.
Especially when they went to the, like, secret organizational get together, you know, you have to get a lot of people in there. You gotta do a lot of makeup for all of them as well. And I was just like, wow, that's inspiring to see like that small of a budget be stretched so far, you know?
Yeah, and I think they did a really good job world building with that house being, like, one of 3 sets that they had, I think, or,
Oh,
like,
dang.
somewhere around that. Um, they just used every single nook and cranny, and I felt like if I walked into that house, I would recognize where everything would be, which I thought they did a really good job with that in a movie that's only, like, 90 minutes, you know?
Mm.
Just by the way, looking back, I think I do wanna go with acting for my second one. Like
Okay, okay.
like,
Sounds
seriously,
good.
like, it's really good.
I convinced him.
You did convince me. You gave a compelling argument. But yeah, I definitely agree with you on the production design. It didn't look realistic, you know,
Yeah.
but it was purposeful, and, they knew they didn't have much of a budget to go realistic, so they went with, like, well, what would be goofy, what would accentuate the characters, and
Mhm.
I think they did a good job with that and all the other monsters.
Mhm.
Special shout out to the werewolves because I thought they were so funny.
Oh, yeah, one shot, like, really, stood out to me was when, Nick first came to the house and he, was trying to get out, and then they already finished eating the girl, right?
Uh-huh.
So he started running around the house and it was like a continuous shot, but it was cut so well. I'm pretty sure that it wasn't just one single shot. It had to be some kind of like trick because
Uh-huh.
you would turn one corner and then Taika Waititi and Jermaine and all the rest of them would
Oh,
be that,
yeah.
and then the camera would follow him as he runs and opens another door, and then they would be there too, flying around, and then Deacon came out of his backpack, like those kind of special effects that they did. Yeah, and it was one continuous shot, and I was just watching it. I was like, I wonder how long this is gonna go because it's and how they did it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure. I think that's the best shot in the movie, actually.
yeah.
If there's one thing I am not a big fan of is just, like, the camera work in mockumentaries sometimes bothers me, just because it's purposeful, it just doesn't feel very cinematic to me,
Yeah, I feel that.
just as a personal preference, but, it's not like they did a poor job despite that.
It didn't like play on the tropes too much, which is nice. Like sometimes when other people try to do mockumentaries, I've seen a couple smaller ones. In like every other shot, it would just pull in on someone's face. I mean, I don't know. No, they didn't look too much in the camera, but they did reference the camera a couple times. But the actors didn't really look too much in the camera. But even then, you could just easily like every other shot just like pull in on a reaction on someone's face, you know, and that kind of makes it seem a little bit like unprofessional almost, just like playing tropes too much, and I didn't feel like that at all. Almost I barely noticed the mockumentary type except for like the shaky hand camera and the walking around type stuff, you know.
Mhm.
But, but yeah, I think my favorite part of the comedy aspect was how they didn't, like, force jokes on the audience. I think that's part of the improv type thing, but they didn't have time to, like, zoom in or, like, sit on a joke and wait for, like, a reaction. Not like an audience reaction like a sitcom or something like that, but just, like, for the audience to, like, process, the joke when Vlad um, enters the party and faces his, ex-girlfriend, the Beast.
Yeah, that's funny.
And he's like, "You can't eat stew." And they're like, "Why are you bringing all these, like, humans in here and these cameramen and all that? Like, what is this up?" He's like, "You can't eat stew. You can't eat the cameramans either." Well, maybe that one, but
Yeah.
well, maybe one of them. And then it just moves on, like, the cameraman doesn't even, like the second cameraman would turn his camera to look at the first cameraman that he told was gonna get eaten, and then he would look up and be like, "What?" Like, that kind of, like, letting the joke, like, process in the mind of the audience, but I never felt that, and I felt that was so refreshing to be treated as, like, intelligent, and almost it was like it was the jokes are just, like, slap you in the face and they'll just move on.
Yeah.
It's like days, you're like, "Wait, what? What?" And do you have
Um,
any favorite comedy parts of the film?
uh, we brought up most of the parts that Oh, we have not brought up Peter enough. Just
Peter.
just, oh, speaking of that one really long shot, ending with with Peter getting him, I think is just the best punchline.
Mhm.
And then I felt really, really upset when Peter died. Like,
I
I
know.
was so sad. I was like, "No, he was my favorite one,
I was so mad at Nick.
Peter."
I was like, "How? Why are you so dumb?
Yeah,
Stop telling people you're vampires.
Nick's
God
the
damn
worst. Fucking Nick.
it. Look what you caused."
Stupid.
Something
Yeah.
else I noticed was that they use, like, a lot of, just images, like old paintings, and inserting themselves into, like, old pictures and stuff like that, sometimes to just play the joke that they've been around for so long, and then other times to just, like, reinforce a tone, which I thought was pretty nice. Like, for the Beast one, they were just like, "The Beast, boom, boom, picture, 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 Beast, some ugly thing."
Yeah.
And, of course, when you figure out, like, the twist that it's just his ex-girlfriend, then
Yeah,
it's like
that
all
was
those
funny.
pictures, like, yeah, built up the joke. Also, the makeup on Vlad when he, like, gets all depressed
Oh,
about the
yeah.
Beast being the guest of honor, I was like, "Wow, what the heck? He looks so gross."
Yeah, they made him look crusty. I think Nick was actually a really funny character. He was one of those fun to hate characters. The thing that made him even funnier was that there was stew with him.
Yes. Like, we had to convince them to not eat him at first, but then, like, after a couple hours, I think they liked him more than me.
Yeah.
Do you have any negatives? Because I mentioned that one negative. I think you mentioned camera work as well,
Yeah,
so
I there was, the cinematography I had problems with every once in a while, maybe because of my own subjective taste. Um, Obviously, the story was not super like, the plot could have been a little tighter.
Yeah,
They
that's what I was gonna bring up, if anything else, that was
yeah.
exactly it.
I mean, they very clearly knew that and just diverted away from it and just decided to be funny, which is great, but, I mean, still, the plot was bad. I would go so far to say.
My opinions on the plot is just a little bit too too much time spent on, "Oh, these are interesting characters, let us just get to know them." Because I felt like, the first half, I'd say, is setting up the characters and just exploring, like, their different, ins and outs and stuff like that. But they are kind of like caricatures almost, and they're vampires. So you're like, you
Mhm.
say the word vampire, and you're like, okay, well, I got all this stuff. Like, there's so much information in that just one description. And then so now it's just like, okay, well, what makes these vampires tick? And I think that the first like meeting scene was like
Uh-huh.
almost enough information, like more and more time spent exploring that instead of having events happen to them. Because, like,
Yeah.
for example, like in the Office episodes, after it started getting good, of course, you know the characters already and they're caricatures. So it was more putting these characters in situations that would be funny. And I think that didn't really happen for the first half of the film, and so it almost lagged a bit for me. Like I was still interested in the characters and what they're doing, but it was just them in the house and explaining a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it just meandered, the story, like, they didn't really have a central focus or thing that they needed to accomplish. I mean, they had, like, the monster ball, but that really wasn't
Yeah,
like,
there's no
they didn't bring that
motivation.
up until the 3rd act,
Hmm.
other than the very, very beginning. Like, there wasn't really a lot there, you know?
This is the first movie that neither of us in the podcast love.
Yeah,
And you
this
see
is
we're
there's a
struggling.
first for everything.
But yeah, there's no like drive in the film, and I felt that was most detrimental in the first half only because events haven't started tumbling as much. And in the second half, you have like this leading to this, like Nick turning into a vampire, and then introducing technology and getting them into places, and then that like got Peter killed, and then that like led to like police come, and then like it's just started like knocking down dominoes as the second half began. But the first
Mhm.
half was a little bit dragging. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a fun movie. It was a cute movie.
I felt a lot of inspiration just watching the movie, and I think that's the best thing I got from it, was just watching how much could be done, with so little, and so it was kind of inspiring as, like, a person that wants to make films, and it was good for what they were going for and what they were working with, you know?
Mhm.
You can't expect some kind of, like, super Oscar-worthy
Yeah.
with goofing off little
Well,
vampires in a
yeah.
mockumentary.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah,
I think it's a nice original take on something that was big at the moment.
yeah, it was just a fun recommendation that fit the theme of this month and kind of contrasted the heaviness of the last episode. So even though it's probably not going to be that long of an episode and it's going to be a little short, which quite frankly people will probably
Yeah,
like more.
people probably like that more.
um,
Sure, we basically wheedled around as far as we could to not pick horror movies for October.
actually,
Except for this
yeah.
weekend. It's
Wow. Wait, I'm actually surprised by that.
if you like what you heard here, you can subscribe to our channel at the Space Turtle Show, the greatest show in the universe. Um, little callback to something you guys have never probably seen.
when we when we assume they watched multiple episodes when
Yeah,
we have like
that
10
shit's
views.
whack. We get we have an average of I think 8 views.
Yeah.
But shit, man, I didn't think we'd get as far as 8 view average, so I'm pretty happy.
Um,
Yeah, if you like what you heard here, you can subscribe, give us a little like. You know, we love those likes. It gives us happy feelings. And next week we're gonna be doing Rosemary's Baby, as we said. So look out. It's getting closer to Halloween. It's spooky season now. It's officially here. Um,
ramping up.
yeah. So
If you guys have seen multiple episodes though, you should comment that.
oh yeah. Yeah. If you
If you've seen more than one episode or like even more than like 5 or 10 minutes of 2 episodes, you should comment that because I'm pretty sure that's nobody.
shout out to Ritivik's channel. I love Ritivik's channel. I'll watch it every week.
He's creating an animation for us too, so
That's
we won't be
crazy.
staring at some black screen anymore.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
See you nice next time.
See you next time.
You should have done blah 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 blah
Blah blah
blah.
blah.